Kentucky, a controversy has been bubbling to the...
Hello everybody, welcome to the Infidel, the news for the damn. Yes, you're not imagining things. We're finally coming back after a nice long rest during the summer. My name is Nicolas D. I produce the show, and I also have the Nicolas D channel. And this is my man cave. That's where I do just about everything, except write all the news. I've got writers who do that, and anchor the news, because as you can tell, I'm not very good in front of the camera. But there are people like Mr. E right there who is doing a great job, and I'm not taking it away from him. I'm going to keep producing the show instead. This is where I'm best. So anyway, I'd like to welcome you again to the 2013-2014 Infidel season. This is our third one, and as you got to see a little bit there are some changes, and I hope you like them, and pass on the word. We're back.
In Kentucky, a controversy has been bubbling to the surface concerning a plan to pipe natural gas from fracking through land owned for nearly 2 centuries by 2 Catholic monastic orders. The project, known as the Bluegrass Pipeline, is being jointly organised by Williams Companies of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Boardwalk Pipeline Partners of Owensboro, Kentucky. The Sisters of Loretto and the fraternal order known as Our Lady of Gethsemane want to maintain the sanctity of their property and argue that the pipeline does not benefit the local community. The fluids in the proposed pipeline are not for fuel but for plastics production overseas, which they argue makes any eminent domain claims invalid. This is not the first time Gethsemane has been involved in a nationally recognised protest. During nuclear arms race of the early 60s, a monk of the order named Thomas Merton began a letter-writing campaign and remained defiant in his protests, even after being ordered to stop by the abbot. Peter Beinart, Associated Professor of Journalism and Political Science at the City University of New York and author of The Crisis of Zionism, recently penned an essay for the New York Review of Books entitled The American Jewish Cocoon. In his article, Beinart makes the case that attitudes in America towards Palestine are largely based on a lack of empathy and understanding, fostered by an attitude where the Israeli state is granted the de facto us position in an us versus them mentality. In his essay, Beinart argues that there are social and political efforts, both covert and overt, to focus on examples of Palestinian aggression, while minimising Jewish aggression as being simply a necessary response, while ignoring the daily living situation faced by Palestinians, such as being denied access to the courts that Israeli citizens, including the settlement dwellers, can access. An unnamed blogger who writes under the name Elder of Zion wrote a response published in the Jewish press. He accuses Beinart of willful blindness and of ignoring Palestinian Arab hate and anti-Semitism, just as he attempts to minimise and contextualise it here as a natural result of things Israelis did. Noting that the Intifada was initiated by Palestinians, the blogger defends the checkpoints and other acts Beinart decries, noting that Jews in America have access to Beinart's books, the BBC, and concluding that the idea that they somehow live in a pro-Likud bubble is ridiculous. The recent US Labor Day saw several pickets across the country featuring fast food and other minimum wage earning workers protesting for a living wage. Joining the service industry, demonstrators across the US were members of the clergy from numerous faiths. Among them, Reverend Cherry Croon of the Flatbush Reformed Church in Brooklyn said of her community in the New York Times that it was filled with fast food workers who have been suffering due to low wages, no sick days and unsafe working conditions. The recently installed Pope Francis is on the record saying, not paying a wage, not providing work, focusing exclusively on the balance books, on financial statements, only looking at making a personal profit. That goes against God. The Bishop of the Stockton Diocese, Stephen E. Blair, wrote an editorial for the Lodi, California News Sentinel. The dignity of the individual and the demands of justice require, particularly today, that economic choices do not cause disparities in wealth to increase in an excessive and morally unacceptable manner, and that we continue to prioritise the goal of access to steady employment for everyone. This input from church leaders on the social propriety of a living wage is not altogether new. In fact, the term living wage was coined by Monsignor John A. Ryan, who in 1906 published a book which called for a dignified wage for workers. The title of that book is A Living Wage.